On the sign. Okay, right, looks like we're live. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for today's developer coffee chat. Wow, I couldn't have done it any worse, I don't think, and given this live, I can't say, let's just do that again.
Take two.
Take two.
There you go, Kieran.
Exactly. Hey everyone, welcome to the MYOB API developer coffee chat. This is our second one of these, and as you can guess, we're still learning, which is an interesting concept, and drinking coffee. Maybe I need more coffee. Hey, so we ran one of these last time, and we got some great feedback on it. One of the biggest things was that it ran for an hour, which was too long. So what we're going to do now is going to change the format slightly. We're going to slice them up to about half an hour each, and we're actually going to swap back and forth month to month. 1 month focusing on tech topics, and 1 month focusing on marketing and add-ons and how we help you promote your add-ons. And we hope that that will actually be a great way of slicing and dicing things. Today, we're focusing on tech, which is why we have Paul with us. Paul is the Platform Strategy Manager and is going to talk to us today about the latest release that we've just had. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Kieran McKenzie, and I'm the API Evangelist here at MYOB. And you'll see me popping up all over the place, including Twitter and all sorts of places at the moment. So, we've got about 25 minutes to half an hour.
Great.
And Paul, this week we did or MYOB did a fantastic release of Account Right 2014.2. And I'm hoping you can unpack what's in there for the API guys.
Okay, so 2014.2 is actually in limited availability. So the API has been released, and we're releasing that to partners, so you can get in the early preview if you like. But it'll be going in production in about a week and a half. So anybody who's on the live platform now will be able to get an upgrade, but the API is there ready, so as a developer, if you want to start playing, you can get access to that now. I guess the key things in the release focused around the payroll area. So last release we did release the payroll categories, but that was I guess on their own didn't add a lot of value. But now with the payroll categories, we've also have the employee payroll details. So with the employee payroll details, you can update anything around the employee's payroll information. It's the same stuff you can get access to within the product. It's available. We also have the timesheets endpoint, and along with that, we also have activities. So with timesheets, you can use timesheets for just tracking for payroll, so that your employees can enter timesheets for payroll. Or they can also use it for time billing. So we haven't implemented time billing yet, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the core thing with timesheets is with that endpoint, we've released it so that you can do insert and retrieve the timesheets. We've actually made it quite flexible, so you give a date range to the timesheet, and it will come back with all of the timesheet entries for a user within that period. And then you can update, and when you update, so we're only supporting get and put. So when you do a put, if there's new timesheet entries, they get added against the employee. If there's existing ones, they'll get upgraded, and if you remove them, they'll be deleted.
So you can upgrade employee information through this as well.
Yep, and you can upgrade employee information.
Fantastic.
and you know, the timesheet information as well.
Great. What else is included in that release?
So we also implemented the first stab at getting the bank statements, so you can actually retrieve all the bank statements, and probably the key value there out of retrieving the statements is being able to see whether that bank statement has been coded or not. So if they haven't been coded, then that value hasn't actually reached your general ledger yet. So you can actually tell what's sort of sitting in the bank balance and where that discrepancy is. So you can do some calculations on that. So there's a few scenarios around there that we're asked to sort of cover off. And the other bit was user access control. So now when you're accessing the API, it's under the credentials of the user that has the database. It will then restrict access to the different endpoints based on their permissions. So if they don't have access to the payroll function within the Account Right product, they won't be able to access the payroll features within the API. So they won't be able to update employee payroll details. They won't be able to change, enter timesheets. Similarly, we've rolled that across all of our endpoints.
Great, great. So let's just touch back. We're going to talk a little bit more about the user access controls in a minute. Let's go back to the key, I guess one of the key themes for this release was really that payroll side of things. Making it a little more concrete, what sort of apps and add-ons are you seeing will be facilitated or enabled by this range of add-ons?
Yeah, good question. So what we're seeing is there's probably two key areas. One is the time and attendance space. So if you as part of your add-on, you're recording, attendance. So, it might be something as employees clocking on, clocking off, and then you've got a history of their data, so you can push that in as a timesheet if they're wage-based. The timesheets also facilitate leave applications. So if you've got an employee self-service, you might have a system that allows you to the employee to log in, put in a leave request, you manage the approvals in there, and then that leave request can be submitted into the accounting system as a timesheet entry as well.
Nice.
And then obviously in that employee self-service, employees being able to update their details around their own entitlements, sorry, not entitlements, their address and contact details and those sort of things as well. So really in that HR, payroll, self-service sort of space and time and attendance. So we're really excited. We've got half a dozen sort of development partners already looking at that, and I can see the applicability in at least dozens more of applications. So,
and I think it's exciting as well because we see some of these endpoints branching out beyond just the categories we define them in, and we get companies like Point of Sale often also want to have information around staff time and attendance, clocking in, clocking out, and so it's quite exciting to see some of these things cross into other areas.
Yeah.
So for those of you with HR or staff management or payroll type solutions, head to developer.myob.com and check out the new payroll endpoints and have a chat to us, and we'd love to know what you're doing with the API from that point of view. Paul, we get asked questions all the time about time billing and timesheets. Now, I'll put my hand up and say I often get these two things confused. So I know you talked about it just a little bit before, but can you unpack a little bit more what we're doing around the time billing aspects of the endpoints we've released in this release? Okay,
so within the product, there is a time billing feature where you have activity slips, and then you can record activity against those slips, and then you can invoice. At the moment, we can't enter activity slips through the API, but we do have the activities endpoint, and that allows you to see what activities are there, and you can record activities as part of the timesheet. So that is an alternate way. So you can still enter activities if you wanted to, if you're also using that for payroll. Sorry. And then you would still have to go into the product to create a time billing invoice. So they're things that we're still looking at. And the next focus of the development team at the moment is, I might be jumping.
You are jumping ahead, but you're welcome to.
We'll talk about it. So it's really about the sales orders and purchase orders sort of space. So we may be able to sort of sneak it in that point. Otherwise, it'll be in a subsequent release.
So in other words, if you really want that, tell us, and we'll put pressure on them as to when they can put it in. So yeah, if you do need something like the activity slip side of things or the ability to create those time-based invoices, then let us know. You mentioned earlier user access controls. Now this is something new I don't know if it's new, but it's an evolved and improved feature of AccountWrite, is to allow much finer control over what any given user in the company file can see in the product. What's been done in the API? What does it mean for our existing developers who have built against it? And what does it mean for guys who now want to actually start to leverage these user controls and limit access to some parts of their product built on top of our API?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. We've added an endpoint that gives you, on the current user, what endpoints do they have access to. So and it'll tell you whether they have read-only or read-write on those endpoints if the endpoint supports it. So we've made that visible, and the reason is that within the AccountWrite product, each user who has a login then has the ability to have a role, and that then nominates whether they have access to particular functions within the product. So again, from a developer perspective, it means that you need to be aware of when you're accessing some of the endpoints. You may, if the current user doesn't have that access, you may get an error reporting back, and our response in terms of the unauthorized message that comes back, there's different scenarios where you can get it. So we know that if you have your OAuth certificates expired, or your current users logins failed, and now also if you don't have permissions, you'll get a similar sort of message. So we've augmented the body of those messages that come back, so you can look at the HTTP response, but then you can interrogate the body to work out, is this a permissions issue in this sense. So developers need to look at that, but best practice would be actually looking at knowing what endpoints you use, and then when the user logs in, just validating that that user has permissions to the endpoints, and as I said, you can do that through that endpoint there.
You saw me taking a note there. That was actually just a thought that we should actually highlight on the blog, and we'll make an effort to do that. Paul mentioned these various different error messages that are now available based on the type of permission based that the user is facing, or that you as a developer will see. So we'll unpack some of those on the blog so that it's a little clearer for you as to when you're going to get those different types of error messages and what they are. I won't put Paul on the spot right now and ask him for what it looks like. So the other thing that we snuck out, or we didn't sneak out, but it's one of the new things that's coming in this release, and it's actually quite exciting, especially for those of you out there who are in the ODBC space. Paul, a large number of our ODBC developers, as we know, are Premier developers. Yep. What does this release mean for them?
Okay, so 2014.2 will be our first release of Premier in the cloud. So existing users who are using Premier, not all of them, but a subset of those will be able to sort of migrate to the cloud and using our cloud products. So the first release of Premier in the cloud will not have multi-currency. So that's the main thing that it won't have. That'll be coming later in the year, near the end of this year. But from our stats and from our research, only about 20% of that Premier base are using multi-currency. So there's a large proportion of that base that can sort of migrate across. The other thing, so I mentioned multi-currency is coming. Premier Enterprise is the other product in that range, so I might as well mention that now as well. And the key features for Premier Enterprise are negative inventory and multi-location. So those things will also be coming, and they'll be by the end of the year also within the product. And our plan is to try and release the API in lockstep with those features of the product. I mention that as a plan because all best efforts are going to be put in place, but we know that sometimes that's not always feasible.
So again, just on that note, if you are a ODBC Premier developer and you do need multi-currency and you do need negative inventory or multi-locations for warehousing, do get in touch with us. We want to hear from you. We want to know, as we model those endpoints out, we're doing it correctly, and so we'll probably get our BA to have a conversation with you and talk through those as we do it. We have quite an open process now when we're doing endpoint modeling. And making sure that customers are actively involved in that. So again, if you're a Premier developer, an ODBC person, do reach out to us, developers@myob.com, and we'd be happy to put you on a list for the BA and for Paul's team to be talking to around those endpoints.
So while we're talking about multi-currency, I will,
jump off script again.
Jump off script and actually quickly mention that when multi-currency does come into the API, we'll be rolling the version of the API from version 2 to version 3. Yep. We'll still keep version 2 compatible, so it won't break existing users, but you'll need to sort of migrate version to take advantage of version 3. It also means that we will have to sunset version 1. So I don't think there's too many people using that, but just as an early heads up, that announcement will be coming soon as well.
Yeah, so on that point, we do have a bit of a plan around communicating version 1. We have identified the users that we know of that are using version 1 of the API. If you are actively using it, again, please get in contact with us, developers@myob.com, so we can talk to you about the plans of when that's going to happen. We are giving you effectively 3-4 months notice as of now, but we will be fully communicating properly via email channels and others as to when we have some more hard dates around that. But the intention is at this point we've got at least 4 months to start moving across. We want to handhold, we want to work with you on that and make it a nice seamless process. So reach out, let us know who you are if we haven't identified you already.
There's not a lot of functionality in version 1, so I think if you needed invoices or anything else like that, you're using version 2. So
absolutely. All the cool stuff's in version 2.
Yeah.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about the API side of things. There's one other key piece of that puzzle, and that's the installer for the desktop software. That went through some changes over the last little while. Can you unpack some of those?
Okay, so in version 1, in 2014.1 of AccountWrite, when we went to market, we introduced a new installer flavor. So our previous installer would work for, it was the one installer that worked for desktop and for servers. So if you wanted to share files, essentially it installed, it ran services, and those services allowed you to share files across networks. But it also meant that the installer was much more complex. It meant that it was took up more resources on the machine, and we know that a lot of our customers pretty much use the product just on the one machine, so they they were carrying an overhead and a burden. It also meant that it has to be installed as an administrator. So with version 14.1, we went out with a new installer called our client installer, and that client installer, as long as you've got the prerequisites of .NET 4.5 already installed, does not require admin privileges to install it. So, those on 14.1 now going to 14.2, they'll easily be able to upgrade, and they'll be prompted for an upgrade, and they can install it. They don't have to be admin. So it makes it much easier. It doesn't install services, which again makes it nice and easy. For it to work without admin privileges, it follows sort of standard Windows approach, which is to install it in the user's profile. So it does mean that if you're taking that client installer, it's installed in a different location, and if the machine is a shared machine used by multiple users, it's in there. Multiple users need to install it. There are other approaches for that. So if you wanted to, as I said, if you're sharing files from your machine, you need to use the server installer, and you can continue with the server installer if you wanted to have multiple users on there. There is a third approach, but we only communicate this to IT professionals who are looking at an environment, and that is you can take our client installer, still get the benefits of the client installer so that it doesn't require services, it's nice and light and faster on the desktop, and install it as an admin install. So there's an MSI that you can download and install as an admin install, and then that goes in for all users, and then it's only installed once. And that's good in environments where if you're using roaming profiles, you don't want to use the client installer out of the box, you need to do it in this way. Or if you're using terminal services, it's the best one for terminal services environment as well. So previously the server installer run in terminal service environment, when you've got multiple users all running all these services, really drain on resources. So the client installer really helps that, but you have to run it in that admin right.
What does it mean for the API guys trying to access the API?
So it's a bit of a complex area because with 14.2 we also have now taken the current 6 installers down to 1.
Awesome. So
we now have from 14.2 a single client installer for AU, NZ, and for all versions of AccountWrite from Basics through to now Premier. And there's one server installer that gets installed for AU, NZ, and Basics through to Premier as well. So that simplified the installation. When you use the server installer, the API is installed as a service, and it runs as a service, as you're aware. In that mode, it pretty much is as it is today. If you're taking the client installer, the API gets installed as essentially as a startup process. So the user who's installed it in their startup folder, has a new executable that starts, which essentially starts the API process. Again, the client installer, because it's not run as admin, you can only access that API on localhost 8080 from within the local machine.
Right. Yep.
If you need to access the API in a network environment across machines, then you need the server installer.
Yep.
If you're in the cloud, then really it doesn't matter. So you don't care about the local API install. It's you're talking to the cloud, and that's easier anyway.
Much easier. And it's interesting though, we are seeing more and more customers moving their files to the cloud, especially those who are accessing more add-ons, sharing their files with their accountant and such like, and getting those benefits of the cloud services, collaboration and such like. So we are seeing a big shift in that space.
I'll just add another point there. There is a number of articles online. So there's one specifically around which installer to use, and then that also has a link that if you're using a shared profiles or terminal service environment, it takes you to a different technical note and how to get access to that installer. Great. So we'll share that link as well as on one of the blogs.
Or even directly below here on this page,
great.
We can actually have a bunch of links. So not below this table, below the page on the website.
Yep.
Dharmesh and I will update that later this afternoon with some of the links that we've been talking about now, and those ones in particular, which would be great. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time talking about account write, and we're rapidly running through time. We've got about 9 minutes left. Account write, however, is not our only API. Do you want to tell us a bit more about the other one that's now on the market?
Yes, so we now have an API for MYOB Essentials accounting. So those who may not be aware, we renamed our live accounts product to Essentials Accounting, and the reason for that was that obviously the naming caused a lot of confusion between live accounts and account write, and we wanted to sort of come out with a much clearer segmentation of and an understanding of where our products fit. So down for a new business starting small, very simple needs, MYOB Essentials Accounting is the product for them, and it suits a large chunk of those businesses. As they get more complex in terms of their needs, so they either have specialization in roles, so you're a business that now has maybe an accounts payable person, and you need to implement roles and who has access to different things. So you might have salespeople getting access to it. Then you start to sort of move up into the account write range, because it's a bit more complicated, it's a bit more flexible, and then obviously we have our XO and products at the next tier as well. So there's sort of trying to show that there's we've got products that fit all different types of businesses, and it's not one size fits all. There are needs and different things that people need. Again, I guess with both products, they have a lot of similar features in terms of, if you look at the high level, invoicing, quoting, payroll. But it's really the depth and the complexity of those, and a good analogy between Essentials is like it's a really good automatic camera. It does the job, it's got all the settings. Whereas your account write is that SLR. So again, it's not, you can potentially use it automatic, but if you want to tweak or have a bit more control, you can do that. So that's sort of the sort of differentiation there with those products. But that's probably talking more about where those products fit in. For Essentials,
we want the API.
For Essentials Accounting, we've now released an API. It's still in a limited release at the moment, so you need to sort of contact us specifically to say, hey, you want to get access to it. The other piece of work, I guess, digressing a little bit again here, is across our business, we've been moving all of our products to leverage our what we call our MyDot identity. So the same identity that if you then log on to account write in the cloud, you've got to then log on with your MYOB identity, with your MyDot login, which is our support center. We're using that in the accounts division. Essentials Accounting is also migrating to that. So all of our products have this one identity that you'll be able to log into, and as long as you've got entitlement to that product, you can continue to work on that. So that work is still in finalization. So the product now, you can log in with the MyDot identity, but there's the process of migrating existing users to that is still in train. So getting on board, we have to go through that little bit of manual step to get that your existing account right. Essentials Accounting account, or if you need a new one, link to your MyDot account so that you can get that started up. But we do have a couple of developer partners that are already integrating against that API. Again, as with the account write API, we're doing it in stages. So the first release does have access to some of the core functions around accounts and tax codes and those sort of things, and being able to do invoicing. So, but we'll be rolling that out more and more over time.
So as Paul said, we've got a couple of guys beta testing that for us at the moment. One of them has about 3 or 4 customers, I think, in market right now using it, which is great to see. As we mentioned, they were manually configured so they could actually use it. The documentation for Essentials API is live. It is on the developer site. So again, down below here, we'll make sure we put a link on it. But for those of you who need it, developer.myob.com, there's links to the Essentials API documentation there, so you can start to have a play with that. We will be bringing that to the market as soon as that behind-the-scenes plumbing effectively has been completed for the user stuff, and then have at it. And we're looking forward to seeing what people build on that platform as well.
So at the moment, we don't have a .NET SDK like we do for AccountWrite on that on Essentials. It'd be interesting to hear whether there's a demand for that with our partners as well. So. Let us know.
Let us know, absolutely. Okay, so we're rapidly running out of time. What's the big overarching theme for the next AccountWrite release anyway?
So compliance.
Okay, the one after that.
So compliance is, so for AccountWrite itself, it's compliance, we're all focused on that.
Yep.
For the API, so
one.
AccountWrite API, we're focusing on sales orders. So closing out sales orders so that you can then convert them to invoices, receive payment on sales orders. So that sort of really helps in the flow. So if you've got a process either in e-commerce or in warehousing where you receive the order, you pick the good, you ship it, and you want to convert it to an invoice and maybe back order some of the stuff there, we'll support those sort of flows.
Perfect.
The next side of things will then be purchase orders. And again, similar sort of flow, but with receive inventory in there. So they're the 2 key things that we're focusing on. Sales orders side of things will definitely be in by that compliance release time frame. The purchase orders, if not by then, will be following fairly quickly after.
And what sort of time frame are we looking for compliance?
So compliance, we have a hard and fast date on that. So. It's generally mid-June, right? When it goes public, we'll probably be in early release a week or 2 before that.
Fantastic. So orders coming next, sales orders coming through, which will be great news. We've been having a number of requests for that, especially from a number of the inventory players. So that's exciting. All right, so that's pretty much us for today. That's an update of what happened in the latest release. A couple of other things I just want to call out, even though it's not a marketing topic today, is we did send a newsletter out this week, and we included in that newsletter information about Partner Connection. So Partner Connection is a 2-day set of events that's coming up in August with a great opportunity for you to be involved from an exhibition point of view to showcase and promote your wares. We're really looking forward to this. It's a great time to get in front of our certified consultants, bookkeepers and such like. So the expression of interest is now open for that. So if you haven't seen your newsletter, go and grab it. We'll make sure, again, the links are down below so you can actually start to express interest on those. We're not holding you to those orders yet. This is simply saying, hey, yes, I'm interested, I want to know more. And as we lock down some details over the coming weeks, we will be in communication with people who have said they want to be there. So get that in there. Next week, we'll take a bit more of a deep dive into what is Partner Connection. We'll take a look at some of the other activities we're doing around promotion of add-ons and how we're showcasing your products to our market and what we can do to help you in that space. But pretty much, I think that's us for today. Any other comments, Paul?
No, that's good. And I look forward to next month because I know the showcases have been going really well, so it's good.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.